In 1999, Ford committed what might be the most embarrassing fraud in modern muscle car history. They rated the Cobra at 320 horsepower. Dyno testing revealed the truth: 270 to 285 at the wheels. Some even hit 268. The math was brutal. Ford had lied by 50 horsepower. Enthusiasts felt betrayed. Magazines felt foolish. Dealers felt scammed. This wasn't a mistake. This felt like fraud. Ford's response? A full recall. Every 1999 Cobra owner got their money back or a replacement vehicle. The automotive press crucified them. Car and Driver called it corporate dishonesty. Motor Trend questioned whether SVT could ever be trusted again. This was a company that had built its performance reputation over decades, destroyed in one model year. The Cobra name, synonymous with American muscle since 1962, was now synonymous with lies. Then came 2000. SVT Engineering had exactly one chance to save their reputation. One opportunity to prove they weren't just corporate liars with dyno-proof marketing departments. The answer? The Cobra R. R for racing. 300 units. Performance red only. $55,000. No air conditioning, no rear seat, no radio, no excuses. And this time, every single specification would be verified, independently tested, publicly documented. This wasn't just a Mustang. This was an apology letter written in horsepower, with receipts. Motor Trend took it to Laguna Seca, that famous corkscrew, those elevation changes, that technical nightmare that separates pretenders from performers. The lap time? 1 minute, 41.52 seconds. To put that in perspective, that same day, they tested a Porsche 911. The Porsche? Barely faster. The Cobra R had just entered a lap time conversation with German engineering that costs twice as much. SVT had gone from scandal to redemption in exactly 12 months. This is the story of how Ford saved the Cobra name, by building the most extreme street-legal Mustang ever made. Let's rewind. 1999. The Cobra is supposed to be SVT's flagship, the Performance King, the car that justifies the special vehicle team's entire existence. Then, disaster. Independent dyno testing by multiple magazines reveals the ugly truth. Those 320 horsepower, they don't exist. Not even close. Car and Driver dynoed multiple units, 270 to 285 wheel horsepower, depending on which example you tested. Some hit 268. Do the math. Even accounting for drivetrain losses, these cars were making maybe 290 to 310 at the crank, not 320. Ford's excuse? Variances in production. The automotive press wasn't buying it. Neither were customers who'd paid $28,000 expecting Corvette-fighting performance and got, well, something that struggled to keep up with a well-driven 5.0 Fox body. January 2000. Ford announces a full recall. Not a "we'll fix it" recall. A "we'll buy it back or give you a replacement" recall. $28,000 per car. Times. How many units? Thousands. This wasn't cheap. This was corporate damage control at a scale Ford hadn't seen since, well, maybe ever for a performance car. SVT's credibility? Dead. The Cobra badge? Tarnished. The solution? Build something so undeniably fast, so obsessively documented, so brutally honest, that nobody could ever question SVT's integrity again. February 2000. SVT announces the Cobra R. The name alone carried weight. 1993, Cobra R. 1995, Cobra R. Limited production, track-focused, legendary. But this time, the pressure was different. This wasn't just another limited edition. This was redemption. This was SVT Engineering looking at the entire automotive world and saying, "We screwed up, and here's how we fix it." Not with apologies, not with excuses. With 300 hand-built machines that would prove, beyond any shadow of doubt, that when SVT says a number, that number is real. No asterisks, no variances, no corporate doublespeak. Just pure, unadulterated engineering competence. Finally, 300 units. That's it. Not 3,000. Not 30,000. 300. Why so few? Because building a car this extreme, this focused, this uncompromising, at scale, impossible. Or at least, unprofitable. Each one required individual attention, hand-built modifications, quality control that actually controlled quality. You couldn't just bolt a wing on a regular Mustang GT and call it a day. This required SVT's full engineering resources, focused on a tiny production run. Limited, documented, verified. Want one? Too bad. You couldn't just walk into a Ford dealer and order a Cobra R. SVT required a formal application. Seriously, an application to buy a car. You had to prove you'd actually race it. Track days, SCCA events, time attack, something. Ford didn't want these sitting in climate-controlled garages as investments. They wanted them destroying lap records. The price? $54,995 base. Some dealers added markups pushing past $55,000 for a Mustang. In 2000, that's Corvette Z06 money. That's used Porsche 911 money. That's are you insane money. Color options? Performance red. That's it. No black, no silver. No, I'd prefer blue. Performance. Red. Only. Why? Because SVT wanted these cars visible, on track, at events, in magazines. You couldn't hide a Cobra R in subtle gray. You couldn't blend into traffic in understated black. Performance Red said, yes, I paid $55,000 for a Mustang with no air conditioning. And yes, it's worth every penny. Deal with it. Here's what you got. From the factory. No dealer modifications. No aftermarket parts. Pure SVT. A 5.4-liter DOHC 32-valve V8. Not the modular 4.6 everyone expected. 5.4. The same displacement as Ford's truck engine. But with DOHC heads. Aluminum block. Forged internals. This wasn't a parts bin special. This was engineering. The rating? 385 horsepower at 5,700 RPM. 385 pound-feet of torque at 4,500. But this time, SVT did something revolutionary for Ford. They verified it. Publicly. Multiple independent dyno tests. Car and driver. Motor trend. Road and track. Every single one confirmed. Yes. 385 horsepower. Actual. Delivered. Real. No lies, no variances, no corporate PR spin, just honest numbers. What a concept. 0 to 60, 4.4 to 4.7 seconds, depending which magazine you trust. Car and driver hit 4.4. Motor trend got 4.7. Either way, faster than the 1999 Cobra claimed to be. Imagine that. A Mustang that actually delivers the performance Ford promised. What a revolutionary concept. The quarter mile? 12.9 seconds at 110 miles per hour. Finally, numbers you could verify without feeling lied to. Top speed? 175 miles per hour. Drag limited. Not bad for something that deleted the air conditioning in the name of track focus. Because nothing says serious racing like removing the radio, but keeping the carpets. The transmission, a Tremec T5 6-speed manual, not a 5-speed, not a 4-speed slush box for people who couldn't drive. 6 speeds, close ratio gearing optimized for track work. First gear, brutal. Launch hard and you'd hit 60 in first gear alone. Second, scream to 90. Third, 120. This wasn't a transmission for commuting. This was a transmission for lap times. The rear end, Ford Racing 3.55 limited slip. Not the standard Mustang GT rear, not some half-hearted upgrade. Ford Racing. The same parts you'd buy from the performance catalog if you were building a race car yourself. SVT just installed them from the factory with a warranty. Because when you're charging $55,000 and trying to rebuild your reputation, you don't cheap out on the differential. The suspension. Here's where it gets interesting. Independent rear suspension. Not the solid axle that every other Mustang used since, well, forever. IRS. Independent. The same setup from the Cobra since 1999. Why? Because IRS improves compliance over bumps. Better traction, better handling, better lap times. The solid axle Mustangs, even the high-performance ones, would hop and skip under hard acceleration or trail braking. The IRS? Composed, planted, predictable. The chassis. Oh, the chassis. Ford dropped it 1.5 inches in front, 1 inch rear. Bilstein dampers. Eibach springs. The result? Road and Track documented that SVT had finally taught a Mustang how to turn without plowing straight into the nearest guardrail like it was trying to escape its own shame. Decades of terminal understeer, gone. This thing actually rotated. It turned in. It communicated through the steering wheel like a proper sports car instead of a drunk shopping cart with delusions of grandeur. It was, dare I say it, balanced. Ford had discovered that corners exist, and you can, stay with me here, actually drive through them instead of just pointing vaguely in their direction and hoping for divine intervention. The brakes, Brembo 4-piston calipers up front, 13-inch vented rotors, 11.7-inch rears. Car and driver measured 70-0 braking at around 160 feet. Not supercar territory, but respectable. Very respectable for an IRS-equipped Mustang that dramatically improved compliance and braking stability compared to its live-axle GT siblings, even if it still occasionally reminded you that physics has opinions about sudden weight transfer. Ford had finally given the Mustang brakes that could, revolutionary concept here, actually stop the car before you ran out of talent or insurance coverage, whichever came first. The tires, BF Goodrich G-Force KD, 265/40, ZR18. Staggered setup front and rear. These weren't all-season compromises. These weren't budget specials. These were serious performance rubber. Track-focused, sticky, loud. The kind of tires that lasted maybe 10,000 miles if you drove like a grandma, and 5,000 if you actually used the car the way SVT intended. Want quiet? Want comfortable? Want tires that last 30,000 miles? Buy a Taurus. The Cobra R came with tires that worked. The wheels, 18-inch lightweight forged aluminum. Not cast, forged. Lighter, stronger, more expensive. The kind of wheels you'd upgrade to if you were building a track car. SVT just included them, standard. Because when you're building 300 cars to save your reputation, you don't cheap out on unsprung weight. Now, here's what you didn't get. Air conditioning. Deleted. In a $55,000 car. The rear seat. Gone. Replaced with a carpeted delete panel and racing harness bar. The radio. Removed. Because who needs music when you've got a 5.4-liter V8 singing at 7,000 RPM? The sound system. Deleted. Rear speakers. Deleted. Kind of pointless without a rear seat. And here's Ford's favorite trick. Fog lights. Gone. Replaced with brake cooling ducts. Because when you're trying to stop 3,650 pounds of American redemption from 150 miles per hour, you need airflow to the rotors, not ambient lighting for the driveway. Ford literally told customers, sorry, you can't have luxuries. This is a race car, with a license plate, and a VIN number, and a warranty. But still, fundamentally, a race car. Dealers hated this. Hated it. Why? Because they couldn't sell them. Not easily. Customer walks in. I want a Cobra R. Dealer. Great. $55,000. No air conditioning, no rear seat, no radio, one color. Oh, and you need to apply to SVT and prove you'll race it. Customer. I'll take the GT. Ford knew this would happen. They didn't care. This wasn't about profit margins. This was about proving a point. The weight, around 3,650 pounds. Ford stripped out the rear seat, deleted the air conditioning, removed the radio, no fog lights, replaced with functional brake cooling ducts. Added a massive functional rear wing for high-speed downforce. No unnecessary comfort features. This wasn't a Mustang you daily drove to work. This was a Mustang you trailered to track days and unleashed on unsuspecting Porsches who thought American cars couldn't turn right. The aerodynamics, that rear wing, not cosmetic, functional, wind tunnel tested, designed to generate downforce at high speeds without creating excessive drag. The front splitter, also functional. The brake cooling ducts, you guessed it, functional. Every aerodynamic element served a purpose. This wasn't boy racer aesthetics. This was engineering. The kind that costs money to develop and makes cars faster around tracks instead of just looking fast in parking lots. Back to Laguna Seca. Motor Trends test. May 2000. Randy Pops behind the wheel. Professional driver. SCCA champion. The man who driven everything. His verdict? The Cobra R was the best handling Mustang I've ever driven. Not good for a Mustang. Not impressive considering. The best, period. That 1 minute, 41.52 lap time? That put the Cobra R within spitting distance of cars costing twice as much. The Porsche 911 they tested the same day? 1 minute 40.9. The Cobra R was 0.6 seconds slower, for half the price. Let's talk about what the Cobra R represented. This wasn't Ford trying to sell volume. 300 units doesn't move the profit needle. This was SVT engineering, backed into a corner after the 1999 humiliation, putting their entire reputation on the line and saying, "We will never lie to you again." Or at least not until the next scandal. But for 2000, every horsepower rated, delivered. Every lap time claimed, verified. Every spec promised, documented. It's amazing what public embarrassment and potential lawsuits do for corporate honesty. Turns out, when your credibility is on life support, accuracy becomes surprisingly important. Who knew? Car and Driver said it best. Arguably the best production pony car ever built. Not one of the best. Not among the best. The best. That's the quote. From one of the most respected automotive publications in America. After the 1999 disaster, where Ford had all the credibility of a politician promising lower taxes, that review wasn't just praise. It was redemption. Printed, published, verified. SVT had gone from laughingstock to legend in exactly one model year. All it took was 300 cars, 0 lies, and the corporate equivalent of a public apology tour with receipts. The racing results: SCCA World Challenge, NASA events, time attack competitions. Cobra R's started showing up and winning. Not doing well for a Mustang. Winning. Against Porsches, against BMWs, against Corvettes, against everything. Why? Because SVT had built a car that was, finally, actually competitive. Not just straight-line fast. Not just good enough for government work. Competitive. Period. The collector market noticed. Immediately. These cars weren't depreciating. They were appreciating. 2001, selling for $60,000. 2005, $70,000. 2010, $85,000. Today, clean examples push $100,000 for a Mustang. That's Corvette Z06 money now. For a car that cost $55,000 then. Why? Because SVT only built 300, and because, for once, Ford built something that delivered what it promised. Let's compare. 1999 Cobra, rated 320 horsepower. Actual, maybe 290 to 310. Scandal. Recall. Humiliation. 2000 Cobra R, rated 385 horsepower. Actual, 385 horsepower. Verified. The difference? Honesty. That's it. Not better engineering, though the R had that too. Not more expensive parts, though the R had those too. Just basic, corporate honesty. The kind that should be standard but somehow became revolutionary. Production timeline. February 2000 announcement. Applications open. SVT reviews every single one. April 2000. Production begins. Hand-built. Individual attention. Quality control that meant something. By December 2000, all 300 units completed. Delivered, documented. Each one with a build sheet. Each one with a serial number. Each one verified to meet specs. This wasn't mass production. This was precision. Owner stories? Legendary. Track day warriors who'd show up, no air conditioning, no radio, no rear seat, and absolutely destroy cars costing twice as much. Porsche owners confused how a lowly Mustang just outbraked them into turn 1. BMW drivers wondering why their superior German engineering couldn't keep up through the technical sections. Corvette owners, well, they understood. American V8, serious suspension, competent brakes. Welcome to the club. The legacy? Permanent. The Cobra R proved something Ford had been trying to prove for decades. American cars, when engineered properly, could compete with anything. Not just in straight lines, not just in drag races, in corners, on tracks, where handling and braking and balance actually matter. This wasn't about horsepower anymore. This was about driving. The Cobra R was a middle finger to everyone who said American cars couldn't handle. And that middle finger came with receipts. Here's the thing about redemption. It's not cheap, it's not easy, and it requires honesty. SVT learned that the hard way. 300 cars, $55,000 each. No lies, no excuses, no variances in production. Just engineering, performance, truth. The 2000 Cobra R didn't just save SVT's reputation, it proved something more important. When American manufacturers stop lying, stop cutting corners, stop prioritizing profit over performance, they can build cars that embarrass anything on the planet. The Cobra R wasn't just a Mustang. It was proof that Detroit, when pushed, when held accountable, when forced to be honest, can still build legends. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One car, 300 units, zero lies. Welcome to redemption, measured in lap times. If this story about corporate redemption, measured in horsepower and honesty, hit different, hit that subscribe button. Because we've got more stories about the cars that proved Detroit could still build legends when accountability forced them to be honest. Next time, we're diving into another machine that embarrassed competitors twice its price. This is Car Chronicles, where we document the moments American manufacturers stopped lying and started building. Don't miss it.